YieldMax Group B will be going X this week. I'm going to go through all of Group B ETFs and chart them out, and let's see what they look like. Hello, my friends. This is Legend. Group B will be going X this week, and I wanted to do a little charting for these. Some of these I haven't even really looked at on a chart, so I thought it would be neat to kind of check them out, see how they're doing. In Group B, we'll see NVDY, DIPS, FBY, GDXY, BABO, JPMO, MARNI, PLTY, and MARO. So before we go to the charts, if you don't mind, please hitting that subscribe button. It'd be much appreciated. So let's jump right on in. So here we are on the Webull charts, and we're going to start off with NVDY, NVDY. So as you can see here, I've got a little support line right here. It looks like it was bouncing off of it a good bit for most of the time that NVDY has been out. It has dropped down below it, but pretty much came back up above it over the entire period. It did have this drop right here. Around about the 1st of February, the end of January. But as you can see, it did come back up above that same line. And that line's around about $20.50. And then, of course, we had the market fall of February. And therefore, now we have made new lows. But as you can see here, looks like the MACD is crossed up. We are getting a little bit of green on the MACD here. And if you look here, and this blue number right here, and I'm circling it with my cursor, that blue number, which is the RSI 14, that's a 14 interval RSI, that's sitting at about 46.5 roughly. So anything above 70 means it's overbought, and anything under 30 is oversold. Now that doesn't mean that it can't keep going or it keeps dropping, right? So otherwise, if this was sitting at 25, that would mean this little blue line here would be down here somewhere, right? And that would mean that this would potentially be oversold, meaning that the sellers could be getting to the point of being exhausted, and therefore the buyers can start pushing this price back up. Now again, that is not guaranteed, because there's always time where it can just keep on going and that RSI can keep dropping low to the flow. You never know. So that is just an indicator, and you should treat it as such. But with NVDY here, we've got a little bit of up here, upswing. So it's very interesting. We're sitting at about $17.69, and we got that support line around that $20.50. I'm very curious to see if we can get back up there to that $20 range on NVDY. And if so, we might be able to get back above that to where we can use that support line to bounce off of. NVDY overall pays about, there's $1.60, 82, 89, $1.18, and $1. So they're paying out some pretty nice dividends or distributions for sure. And looks like the price overall is somewhat pretty stable, right? I mean, I say that with air quotes, right? Stable. Because, it started off at around about a $20 price range, and it went as high here. There's $31.77, and now we're back down to $17. So if you bought it around that $31 range and now it's sitting at $17, I imagine you're not going to agree much as far as this has been stable, right? So definitely I understand. I've got a couple in my portfolio as well where I bought and it did drop, and I'm underwater on a couple of them. But again, but if you look, I mean, overall, this thing is somewhat trading sideways right up until the fall. Now that's a big range that it is running, but if you think about it, if that is indeed the range, and if we draw what's a little horizontal line right here, and that is the range that you're working within. If we can get that NVDY price where it's sitting now under that range, and if we see that it's getting ready to go back into that range, and if it wants to stay in that range, man, this might be a good buy time. But that is definitely not financial advice. So take a moment and look through that one a little bit further and see what you think. Here's DIPS, and DIPS, well, it is being true to its name, I think. It is pretty much done nothing but dip. It dipped down, dipped down, dipped down, dipped down, dipped down. It just keeps dipping down, right? Not so much if you own it that you caught the dip. It just looks like it just keeps going down. I won't even have to draw a line here. I think it's pretty visual of what dips have been doing here. It got as low as $11.08, being around that February market fall, and it did start moving up because it is shorting NVIDIA. So that way, when the NVIDIA started dropping, dips started going up here. But I'm not sure I would be personally someone who would want to short NVIDIA. Definitely not long term. You might be able to short it short term and make some money, but I don't think I would personally want to be trying to short NVIDIA long term. I just think it's a banger of a company in my opinion. But that's all that is, just my opinion. FBY looks like we've got a support line here, and overall it was staying above that line. And then it was trading right on that line, right? You can see it's just bouncing around on top of that line. It did drop down a little bit, but it came back up and started bouncing off of that line again. We did have that market fall again. Here's that February, right, where it did fall. But again, if you are in FBY or are interested in FBY, could this be a good buy time? Well, if you also look over here, there's that low. That's the lowest it's been, right? So we can take that line right there, and we'll just make that as a red line, as that being the lowest it's been, right? So around that 1655, it looks like it got down to that and it bounced off of it. So is this a good buy time? It could be, but you'll need to do your own research on this one to see if it makes sense for you to get into FBY. It pays out, looks like about 40, 60, 44, 37, 83, and it is monthly, right? Because it is part of Group B. So if you can get a ETF in YieldMax and it's trading sideways and it pays out a nice dividend or distribution, that's kind of the ones that I'm looking for. So see what you think about this one. Especially if you can get it down while it's low instead of trying to buy it when it was going up. And I know some of you might have bought it up here and you may be a little underwater. So in your case, do you dollar cost average in? Maybe so. But look into it for yourself and see what you think. GDXY. This is off gold miners, and it doesn't look too promising in my book. Now, granted, it has started moving sideways and moving up some, which does make sense because a lot of people were pulling out of the market and probably putting it into the metals. But I personally don't see me getting into this one. It has a distribution of about 44, 59, 34, 37. So again, this one's just not for me. Here's Babo. Here we got Babo. This one, honestly, it's kind of really difficult to see what's really going on here. I mean, you could say something, like that might be a little line right here where it did bounce. It did bounce again, but I mean, this thing just dipped down so low, and it did come back up and then bounce off of it. But again, I don't know about Babo. You also have to take into consideration of any of the ETFs that might be affected by any of the policies. But for me, I'm just not feeling it for Babo. It's just not for me. It could be on its way on back up, or just trade sideways and continue to pay out those distributions. And it looks like it had a really nice one. This past one was $1.91. So congrats on the ones out there with Babo. JPMO. For JPMO, as you can see, we're on a bit of a downward trend. It's not tremendous, but it is on a downward trend. But you look at it, it also looks like it's almost becoming like a little bit of a wedge. Now, there are fallouts, right? There's the February fallout, which took it all the way down to here. But we do seem to be creating a little bit of a wedge. So I don't know if that is going to be a positive thing where it shoots out of that wedge, or does it break down below the wedge? The distributions are around 29, 69, 30, and 31 cent just from the last few distributions. JPMO is not one for me currently, and I don't think I will be getting into it anytime soon. But for those who do have JPMO, would be very curious to know what you think is going to happen here. Do you think we're going to break out above it, or do you think it's going to break on down, or do you think we're just going to stay within this range right here? Here we have Marnie, and oh boy, Marnie. Wow. I mean, just not pretty at all. The fact that, it did come out around that $20 range. We got up as high as 26, and honestly, it has just been a rough ride for the people out there who have Marnie. I mean, that's just a nasty drop. As low as $3.03. We're at $3.43. I mean, I don't know. Do you get into it now and hope that it comes up? In my opinion, I kind of got to stick with the trend. If that trend shows it going down, I'm afraid Marnie might be at the point where they may end up doing a reverse split on Marnie because it is so low, $3.43. If they did a split on it to bring that price back up, that's just not something I want to get into on that one. So Marnie, for me, is a pass. PLTY. Here we are on PLTY. As it came out, it was one of the ones where it started coming out around that $50 range, right? It's one of those. It did come out around that $50 range. It got as high as $95.08 right before the market fall, right? And then the market fell, and it fell down to around that $55 range here. So, I mean, it took a hard fall. But if you look at PLTR, which is Palantir, and that's the underlining for PLTY, it too took a fall, right? But as you can see here, it looks like it is trying to go back up right here. It did bounce here, so that's where I'm putting my support here. And it did break down below it just slightly, but it did not give a full candle under it before it jumped back up. So I'm hoping that that's a pretty strong support. Again, it all depends on Palantir. Palantir is very volatile, so we'll see how that plays out. As you can see here, PLTY paid out a distribution of $5.93, $2.98, $3.58, $3.34, and $2.20. I mean, it has just been knocking it out on some distributions. So what are your thoughts here? Do you think this is going to continue to move on up? That's what I think, and that's what I'm hoping. The last one in Group B is Maro. And Maro, well, ain't looking too good. And they play off of Mara, M-A-R-A, which is a Bitcoin miner. And this one here has really just been falling ever since it came out at the looks like December of 2024. It pretty much has just been going down ever since. That one also came out at around that $50 range. Got as high as $53.06 and as low as $22.42. So not too excited about Maro, and I think I will pass on Maro. So I think that is all of Group B. But while we're here, let's check out my favorite, MSTY. All right, so here we are on MSTY. And I know MSTY is not part of Group B. Again, it is not part of Group B, but I always like to take a moment to check out MSTY. It's just one of my favorites. So as you can see here, we are still holding strong on that support line. And you can look, and that support line, the candles have been bouncing off of it, right? And if we zoom in here some, you can see we did bounce off here, and we have been moving up. So that's a good sign. I'm glad to see it. The white line right here is my purchase price, $25.31. That is my purchase price, my average purchase price of my shares. So it is getting close to where I purchased those shares at. And that is the price not including any distributions or anything like that. MSTY has paid out distributions of $1.37, $2.02, $2.27, $3.08, and $1.94 in just what we're seeing here. So just wanted to throw MSTY in there just because I can. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. Which one was your favorite out of Group B? Which was your favorite in Group B? Was it NVDY, DIPS? Definitely probably not DIPS. I liked NVDY. FBY wasn't bad for maybe a long-term type because it is somewhat trading sideways. It doesn't pay out huge distributions, but it is paying out pretty nice. So which was your favorite? Was it NVDY? Looks like they're holding pretty strong on that support. FBY doesn't pay out huge distributions, but it seems to be a nice trading somewhat within a range there. Are you a Babo fan? Did you jump on the boat with PLTY? Or are you on what it seems to be the sinking ship of Morrow? So, I would be very curious to know which ones you're in, which ones you like. I love to hear what everybody out there is into and what they're invested in. So if you would, please like and share this video. It'd be much appreciated. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It is needed to help push this channel and these videos out to others who may be looking for this type of content. So as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, legend out.